In the wake of all things digital and remote right now, a Christian bioethics expert and lawyer is sounding the alarm that the push for Zoom and Skype calls now also includes calls for assisted suicide. Bioethics expert Wesley J. Smith wrote an online post for the National Review last week titled, "Doctors Now Assist Suicides Via Zoom." He pointed out how a Washington state physician who administers assisted suicide admitted to the publication The Conversation that she's seeing 90% of her patients online right now and says she does not feel badly at all that she does not hold a stethoscope on their chests. Smith writes, quote, "It is amazing to me how legalizing assisted suicide transforms people's thinking. Making people dead quickly becomes the overriding imperative, and suicide prevention for the seriously ill goes into total eclipse. The easier it is to get people dead, the better." And joining us now via Skype is Wesley J. Smith. He is the chair and senior fellow at the Discovery Institute's Center of Human Exceptionalism. Wesley, welcome back. Okay, put this into perspective for us. How exactly is Zoom and Skype being used right now when it comes to assisted suicide?
Well, in these assisted suicide laws, you're supposed to physically examine patients. An initial doctor is supposed to do it, then refer to a second opinion. Well, as these advocates promised, it was going to be the person's own physician after a long-term relationship and so forth. Well, come the COVID crisis, and actually even before, some doctors are saying, well, why should I even have to meet personally with the patient? Let's just do it over the internet. And so now what you have is the initial interview with the patient, the supposed examination, being done as we are doing this interview, meaning not in person, no real depth. And then the second opinion is actually sometimes done by phone. So what they've done is they've used the internet to shortcut and cut corners on what was supposed to be strict guidelines to protect against abuse. Well, the strict guidelines don't protect against anything and very quickly come to be seen as obstacles to people being made dead.
Wow. You know, Wesley, there are reports that prescriptions for antidepressants and anxiety medications are surging right now. That's really not surprising, considering the isolation, unemployment, and national tensions. But can you speak to why that makes it even more troubling that assisted suicides are ongoing right now?
Well, assisted suicide advocacy says that some suicides are good. And so what you have happening are states actually giving their formal imprimatur of sanction for people to kill themselves. And then when people who have an illness and want assisted suicide, they're not given suicide prevention. So if you're not in that cadre, you look at this and you see people with respect and the law saying that some suicides are good, you begin to think to yourself, well, maybe it's okay for me too. In Oregon, for example, there has been only one study that I'm aware of that has tried to look into this, and it did find some association with advocacy and the increase in suicide generally. Frankly, I think this is an issue that suicide investigators should look at. What impact does assisted suicide advocacy and does assisted suicide legalization have on the view overall of suicides outside of the illness or disability context? I'm just afraid they're not doing the studies because they know what they don't want to know.
Wow, that is terrifying, especially right now when we should be offering hope and not sending this message that you're better off dead.
It's an abandonment.
You know, right, absolutely. Wesley, what does this reveal to us about the true intentions of the assisted suicide lobby?
Well, the assisted suicide lobby is engaged in a great pretense. The pretense is that this is going to be a very limited, tiny, itsy-bitsy change in normal medical procedures, that it will only be done as a last resort when nothing else can be done to relieve suffering, and only when it is in the context of your own physician who's known you for years and years and you have a loving family and so forth. That's all just baloney. What it really is about is softening people up to the idea that suicide and eventually lethal injections are an acceptable answer to human suffering. And as we've seen in places such as Canada, Belgium, the Netherlands, once you accept the idea that killing is an acceptable answer to human suffering, it very quickly expands. It has been generally restricted in this country because we're putting up such a fight to prevent it from being legalized. But once a society generally accepts these premises, pretty soon you have mentally ill people being euthanized, as in the Netherlands, and their organs harvested because they're not sick, so their organs are really good for transplantation. This is the kind of ugliness that assisted suicide unleashes.
Well, I'm just so grateful that you are keeping your eye on this issue and that we can turn to you to help us navigate this. This is unbelievable. Wesley J. Smith with the Discovery Institute, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.